दुश्मनों से बचा माँ तेरी दुआओं से तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से कसम है इसे मेरी उजाले का कुछ कमाल नहीं कसम है इसे मेरी उजाले का कुछ कमाल नहीं उरूज
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus Sacoor and I'll be in your company for the next 2 hours. I'll be interviewing our guests shortly. Today the date is the 13th of November 2024. Equivalent to 12th of Jamad al-Ula 1446 AH. On tonight's show, we're going to chat briefly about is local government in a mess? If so, how do we fix it? And the second part of our topic this evening will be the business pledge to boost KZ economy. Donald Trump's slogan was, before the elections, is we will fix it. Like him or abhor him, the slogan was a winner. He won the elections. Now he must now fix what he and most voters considered wrong in America. If he fails, it will be tickets for the Republicans next time and Democrats will again have a turn. But before the Democrats said that they're going to do the same thing and they failed. We know that our government of national unity has pledged to focus on growth as the generator of jobs and the eliminator of poverty. However, one serious matter that deserves urgent GNU attention is the disastrous situation in local government. Now, we've been chatting for a number of weeks about the situation. What is the problem? What is the solution to the problem? And we can't get to the bottom of it. So we're hoping somewhere along the line, we will establish in which way we can start improving service delivery in local government. All over South Africa, town councils are in financial trouble. The metros, apart from the DA around Cape Town, are all failing, have a revolving door for the mayoralty and the mayoral committee. People appointed who are quite obviously not up to task and often based on dishing out the spoils of those who have been disloyal to the previous mayor and ruling coalition. So we briefly chatted about the appointment of people who are loyal to a particular party. The result of all this is that much of the people's money often is misspent, wasted, or looted. The people have to put up with inferior service or no service at all. Johannesburg serves as a prime example. Now, the voters, in their wisdom and as is their right, elected ward councillors from the different parties, but several peripheral, some would say, rats and mice parties, but I would not be so rude. This is what the reporter is saying. Parties scraped together a few thousand votes over the whole city and managed to get 1 or 2 council seats. Now, there's a major problem in all municipalities, and we know that in KZN, where most of our listeners are located in this radio station, it's in Sindusi municipality in Pietermaritzburg, eThekwini municipality in and around Durban, and we have a couple of municipalities in the south and north of Durban, KwaDukuza and Amdoni and various other municipalities in the south coast. Every one of those municipalities are in a mess. And further, they're running into resource problems. But they're also not in a mess, but there's also ongoing investigations on fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And at the same time, there are allegations of corruption and maladministration. And the public is questioning what are the consequences. Now, if the different organizations that deal with corruption have done their work timeously, then those officials that are alleged to be involved in maladministration and fraud should be taken to task, but it's taking far too long. For example, the Zandile Gumede case, the former mayor of of eThekwini municipality, more than 3 years ago, she was charged, but up until now, the case is not yet finalized. And like that, the Zondo Commission has reported various other cases of fraud and maladministration, but to date, nothing concrete has taken place. There are a lot of officials implicated in the various municipalities. Appropriate disciplinary action has not yet been taken, and we unpacked that in previous discussions, where if the head of department is implicated and those under him are also implicated, then the line will follow. But the Auditor General on various occasions have reported that there are qualified reports on these municipalities, and the impact is quite serious. So with me in the studio, I have Councillor Asghar Khan from Jama. He's also a councillor in municipality in the South Coast, Amdoni municipality, Asghar. Asghar, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran for having me, and assalamu alaikum to all the listeners at home.
Shukran for joining us all the way from South Coast. I know you've got problems with the bridge and you've got to deviate, and it's a major problem. But the fact that you're joining us in the studio shows that you're interested in dealing with this problem. I also have a civic activist, a chairperson of eThekwini ratepayers protest movement, Asad Gaffer. Asad, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah for having me.
Now, Asad is quite a household name, having been interviewed in various radio stations, ENCA, on various issues. And if you look at Asad today, he's a very disappointed man because the various issues that are being raised with the various mayors and community leaders and premiers, all that takes place is they listen and nothing concrete gets done. So up until now, there are a lot of challenges that haven't been dealt with by the municipalities, but Asad will give us an update. But I'm going to kick off with Asad before I ask Asghar to come in. Asad, realistically, is local government in a mess?
I think the answer to that, everyone is aware, it's definitely in a mess. It's been in a mess for the last 30 years. It is for that particular reason why an organization like ourselves and many other ratepayer associations within eThekwini and within South Africa itself have come to the front and to challenge government in this regard. It's an absolute mess. Everything's failed. State-owned enterprises have failed. Municipalities have collapsed. You touched on the point of fruitless and wasteful expenditure has been going unabated. The Auditor General reports for the last 15 to 20 years speaks about it. And it has been going with impunity. The exciting part about this, Brother Yunus, and we touched on this earlier, is that there's a recent court judgment. The case started in 2016. The judgment was granted yesterday or day before yesterday, wherein the Supreme Court of Appeal has now ruled that officials in their personal capacity can be held liable for directly being responsible for fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So I'm not disappointed. I'm actually very excited, given the fact that this judgment has now come at a time where we are actually playing in this space. So, yeah, indeed, we've always called this out for a long time. We've been engaging with municipalities. We've been knocking at their door and we've been talking to them. And like you pointed out, they just listen to you and turn a deaf ear. And then we as an organization, took an approach that the only way is through the courts. That we will challenge any government institution legally, because that is our constitutional right and we must exercise this. And this is what we've been doing. We've been criticized, obviously, for taking that approach. I, as the chairperson, I have absolutely no qualms about it. Yes, we've been chipping away. We've always, tried to engage with the municipality and with government. And when that fails, we have no other option because we've exhausted every other avenue, and the only other avenue is to go to court. The fact that this judgment has now come up makes it a lot easier for us. So we're very excited.
Now, Asad, I've been checking on the chat group where you got more than 800-900 members, and a lot of them have been talking about overbilling. In other words, these meter readers, both for water and electricity, are just guessing and overcharging. And in Johannesburg, many of the councils there have been collecting money from electricity consumers and then use that money to pay employees and councillors' salaries. Now, this ought to be a major concern for the GNU. It is mainly under ANC misrule that local government has deteriorated to this extent, but urgent action is needed to bail out councils and with expertise and help and discipline. Now, a lot of your members have been indicating that they receive bills like 3 times the value for electricity and water. And the threat is that if they don't pay or make arrangements to pay, then the councils and municipalities are very efficient in the disconnection process. And I discussed this in the past where these contractors that are appointed to disconnect, many of them will go to the household and receive bribes not to disconnect. And then the next month, that individual is back to square one because nothing is being done to correct the bill. Now, that is not the only problem. When those consumers or households phone the municipality's billing system or the call centers, they're being pushed from pillar to post, and eventually there's no assistance whatsoever. And those poor people are landed with the bill, and they cannot afford to pay, and nobody is interested in investigating the overbilling. Now, I know you've been flooded with such inquiries in eThekwini municipality. You met with the electricity department, you met with the mayors over, as you said, over several meetings, and you even challenged to withhold payment until this matter is resolved, and then the municipality took your organization to court and by default won that case. But the reality is that this overbilling is a huge problem. I said you want to sort of comment on that.
Brother Yunus, you're opening a huge can of worms. This overbilling, underbilling, incorrect billing. I'll give you a recent example, and we have to commend you seriously. I mean, this show of yours that's throwing the spotlight on all of these issues is so important. And we thank you for giving us this space as well. Personally, for me and for the organization that I'm serving, I'll give you a recent example. In the last 3 months, the municipality forgot to charge people for DSW, for collection of waste. They forgot. How? And then in this month, they charge you for the 3 months, meaning they forgot. It's not their problem. It's your problem. And now they're saying, hey, we forgot to charge you for 3 months. In this month, now you must pay us for all 3 months together. That's one of the examples. I'll give you another example. We've been talking to this municipality for a long time now. They're putting people into an 80-20 agreement. They've been collecting the money in terms of that agreement, but they haven't been crediting those individuals the 20% that they've been collecting. This is fraud. We've raised this with COCTA. We've raised it with the mayor. The mayor promised to have a meeting with me last week to resolve this issue. He's skirted. He's obviously, busy meeting with businesses, blah, 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 showing his face in public, etc., etc. There's individuals who have entered into this agreement facing disconnections, and the municipality is unable to allocate that money that they've collected back to those individuals and reduce their debt. That's a huge problem. And we're talking about individuals who are below the breadline. We spoke to this municipality, they're not listening. We took this to COCTA, they're not listening. We've taken it to Treasury, they're not listening. Our only other option is go to court. There's no other option. Now, we've already engaged with some attorneys, and they're happy to take this on. And we telling this municipality, all right, before we go there, there is a problem. Let's sit down, let's talk. They don't want to listen. We had a meeting yesterday with this municipality, and it's another issue that we took to Kokta. They're collecting a surcharge, a water surcharge, water levy surcharge. They've been doing so now for almost 5 years. Everyone's paying for it, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're business, you're paying. Those who can afford it, they just look at their bill, hey, 6,000, pay the 6,000 and carry on. They're not scrutinizing their bill, and they're not seeing that there's a surcharge for water on this bill. Now, the question and the reason why I'm asking this or raising this is, where is this money? How much of money has been collected? Where is this money being used? We are on the verge of a water curtailment program where they are now going to restrict individuals. We sat in the meeting yesterday with officials, and they're saying, this money that we're collecting from you is still not enough. We want to come back and take more from you, they're telling us. We're saying, hey, hold on. First, tell us how much you collected. Number two, you are charging us for water. Why are you not ring fencing all the revenue that you collect for water? And they agreed that that's what's supposed to be done. And if they ring fence all the monies, all the revenue they collect for water, including the surcharge, the money will be more than sufficient to reduce all the water loss in the city. But what the city would rather do, they'll have a miscavacious competition. You know what that means, Brother Yunus? They want to judge who's the most curvy female in eThekwini. Is that what the municipality is supposed to do? They have a beauty competition. Now we're going into December, you will see in the public space, they're putting out adverts for beach parties. We don't have water. People don't have water. But you want to have a beach party. Something is totally wrong. And again, I'm saying I thank you. I really, really thank you for shining the spotlight on these issues.
Now, I want to open up another can of worms because I was in that space and I'm not afraid of talking the truth. We have a situation where a large number of consumers are living in the informal settlements and not paying for electricity and water. Number two, it is questionable whether people are paying in the townships. Number three, there are huge water losses, which is causing, revenue to be depleted. Yet those consumers that have been paying diligently that you're talking about are now being overbilled, and being overbilled by the inefficiency of the meter readers, that those individuals have to pay the penalty because they don't want to be disconnected. Now, as you mentioned, when they contact the billing department, either the staff don't know what's happening, they're inefficient, or deliberately ignoring these consumers, knowing well that these are from the former ICW, Indian colored and white areas. Now, one may say that this is discrimination of a high order, but we need to prove that. But having said that, the problem we face is that, and I mentioned in my preamble, that the personnel there either don't know what's happening, because the billing system is from the Treasury Department. And in eThekwini, they're located in Florence Mkhize building. And if you visit that building, you can't even go and meet the people in the billing department in the second and third floor. And when you go to the ground floor, nobody knows what's happening. Now, when you're contacting officials, they're not prepared to listen because they said, listen, we'll have to investigate, etc. Nobody comes back to anybody. I've also realized recently, and maybe I want you to comment on that the rates rebate that people were entitled to, having been homeowners below the 2 million threshold, many of them have sent in their applications for the rebate, electronically, and many of them up until now haven't got those rebates. And some of those rebates are 400 and 500 rand. Yet they receive these exorbitant bills and the threat of disconnection when the municipality erred in not capturing those rebates. You want to comment on that, Asad?
Yunus, we can sit here a whole night. The problems are endless. You pulling out one after the other, and you on the point. Not only has it been not captured, they ignore these individuals. These individuals.
I was waiting for you to say that word because I've established they've ignored it and waiting for you to phone. And when
Correct.
you phone, they still ignore you until you go to the next level.
Correct.
And then they respond. But how many thousands of people applying for those rebates are facing these problems?
Thousands. And they come to us as an organization for
Right.
assistance, including those individuals where you're talking about that have been disconnected. Those individuals who've been disconnected come to us. They come crying blood, sweat, and tears. And on a daily basis, if I tell you, Brother Yunus, we don't like to brag. Seriously, it's not.
No, I know you're not bragging. That's why I've seen it in your group chat and I'm raising it with you because I know that's a real situation and we need to deal with it going forward.
100%. And I get taken apart for this. My team, well, they respect this, but outsiders keep coming to us and say, but why don't you all go and tell the people exactly what you do? And let me tell you, Brother Yunus, I've got a team of people around me. On a daily basis, I'm talking about, we go through plus minus 30 to 40 individuals that come to us and we deal directly with the municipality free of charge. We don't earn a salary. We don't charge those individuals. Some of them, yes, they're members, they contribute. It's 129 per year, etc., etc. Some people, they give us donations to just keep us moving along. But on a daily basis, my deputy chair, it's a pity. Next time, I think perhaps maybe you must invite her to the show, and you can interview her. I'm at this stage now. My work keeps me too busy, so she's taken a lot off my plate. But you can interview her, and she'll tell you exactly how many individuals on a daily basis, non-stop, because her phone, my phone, Mohammed Peer, Mahmoud Kader, Vic Naidu, all of these individuals, the core group, Margaret from Toti, her sister Susan from Toti, Lynn from Upper Highway, our phones don't stop ringing. From after Fajr till after Isha, I can show you now phone calls. I can show you. You saw I was sitting in the studio, I was replying to WhatsApp. People are saying I'm facing a disconnection. We're helping these people from sunrise to sunset. This is what this organization has been doing. And I don't like to talk about it. To be honest with you, I don't like to talk about it. But the reality is these individuals have nowhere else to turn. And because they have nowhere else to turn, they come to us. We fight for them. We send emails. Today, one lady faced a disconnection. I was traveling to the Eastern Cape. I couldn't assist. I forwarded the query to my deputy chair. This individual shouldn't have been disconnected. And because of our intervention, we managed to, I'm not sure if it's been sorted out just yet because I've been working the whole day, but the city gave commitment they will reconnect this individual. Which other organization can do this? I'm not blowing my trumpet. My wife will take me apart. I'm sure she's listening. But I'm just saying this is the level of engagement that we have. And these individuals, and the person probably is listening, they know what we're talking about. But we can't allow this municipality to continue like this. And you have Brother Asghar in the studio. He'll tell you he's in the inside. And I've been told I must come on the inside. And I'm saying, no, I don't want to come on the inside. I prefer to stay on the outside. But he will tell you the challenges he faces in council. Because it's very, very difficult. It's the commitment from the individuals who've been elected to serve is not there. That's the problem.
Yes, Asad, I think you just raised some very important issues over and above the problems inside, the inefficiency of the staff to deal with these issues. Now, I'm just doing a comparison, and I'm not saying those that were there before did a better job than those that are not there. Maybe there's a problem of experience. There's a problem of understanding what queries are coming up, and also the politicians beginning to question what are they there for, the councillors. Because when councillors are elected, they have a responsibility. And from an Islamic perspective, it's an amanat, it's a trust. And if you fail to fulfill the trust, you are highly sinful. So I want to bring in Councillor Asghar Khan. Brother Asghar, you are in a smaller municipality in the South Coast. I'm Doni. And eThekwini is a huge municipality. Msunduzi, I went to Piemberg today, and those potholes are getting worse. You drive on the road towards Raystop, they're like, craters, very, very big. I mean, we were driving with a 4x4, and the guy couldn't even go near those potholes because his tire will go. Msenduzi, in the center of town, these are huge potholes, and for years nobody's fixed up. So when we talk about local government being in a mess, it's a real mess. Now, what Asad is saying that, and his ratepayer organization needs to be commended, and other ratepayers are beginning to emerge. And we interviewed a few ratepayer associations from Msenduzi as well as Overport and Ashavel and Springfield, and all the ratepayers are commonly raising the same issues. But the irony of it all is they're facing extreme difficulty in responses from not only the councillors, but from officials. Now, Asghar, maybe you need to comment that what is the real reason why officials and councillors are disinterested?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I think in the discussions that have come just before that that we're having now, I think many of the key pertinent issues have been raised. And although I come from a smaller municipality, the scale of the problem may be smaller, but it's the exact same problem. So it's not unique. The issues that are being experienced are not unique to the bigger municipalities or to the metros. This happens, and in fact, because the metros have more capacity to deal with it, may be they can deal with it in a quicker way. So I think what really, you asked the question of why is the local government not responsive to the people, and I think you also touched on the point of amana and the trust. The first thing is missing is that people who are elected, they break the trust that the people have put in them. So they lose communication. Before the election, you'll find every candidate on every corner of the street, and after the election, you can't even find your councillor in a coffee shop.
He or she will promise the world, and then a day after elections, you won't find them.
You'll never find them. So it comes down to this thing of trust, and ensuring that the people or the residents of the municipality or the residents of the town put in people that they can trust, that will deliver to them. And as much as Brother Asad says he doesn't want to be on the inside, but if he's on the inside, I promise him that things he'll be able to do from the inside will be greater than what he's doing from the outside, because he'll have further insights as to what is happening. The financial reports will be presented to him. It is mandatory as a councillor to receive these reports. Whereas
I want to commend the councillor Asghar that maybe he'll answer that later. His worry is he may be engulfed into the situation that he may not be able to make his concerns noted because he'll be shot down if he is linked up to a party. If he's not, then that may be a concern. Maybe Asad will answer that later, but you can continue.
No, on the issue of that, even before he even answers it, I'm going to encourage him. Obviously, I'd like him to join my party, but to be involved in the space, because once you don't occupy the space, someone else has to occupy that space. So it's imperative that we have the correct people, and we have people with capacity to go and occupy that space to ensure that the residents get the services that they deserve. So I think the first thing that we need to speak of when it comes to local government and the issue that you've touched on, and it's universal, is what can be done then to restore and to make sure that local government reforms. Now, Brother Asad will know, you will also, because you come from the local government space, is that when local government was formed in 1996 in the country, they had this thing called the White Paper on Local Government. And that is absolutely outdated. That gives local government the responsibility of 60 to 70% of services in the country and to the community, whereas the funding model of local government then speaks of the equitable share and the free basic grants and all those type of things. If you equate that, it comes to about 7 or 8% or maximum 10%. So there's your first disparity. The funding model and what is a local government supposed to do, that's your first area that we need to zoom in. And I'm happy that he spoke of the issues of billing, because if you don't bill properly, you're not going to recover properly. And this thing of estimates, I had an issue in my own house. I received, I see the water services van on my driveway, and the guy closes my meter, and I say, "What's the problem? My account is up to date." He says, "No, you have a 60,000 rand bill." So I said, "Okay, show me the bill." So they had another person's meter linked to my property. So they said, no, you Mr. Governor. I said, no, I'm not Mr. Governor. I'm Mr. Khan. So there was this. So luckily that we went to the municipality to sort it out, and the water was open in a few hours.
It could have been a
could-
deliberate ploy.
It could have been someone else who didn't know the process. And the person look for the councillor, look for the Ratepayers Association to assist them. So there's a serious lack of capacity within the officials of the municipality, and this can be resolved.
Capacity or experience or both?
Both.
Oh.
We find that, for example, in the Treasury Department or in the finance departments, the CFO's job, the Chief Financial Officer, ideally should be someone who's a chartered accountant, someone who's able to understand the finances and how it's supposed to operate, and someone who's able to understand business also. Because at the end of the day, this municipality, your revenue, your expenses, you should run it like a business, although you're not intending to make profit, but your profit comes in what services you can use that funds for to deliver to the people. So if you don't have people with that capacity and you can't attract the right people, then you're going to have those challenges.
Now, just coming back to the finance department, which is a very important department in the municipality, and Asad was mentioning that billing is becoming a huge problem, because I don't know what the exact amount eThekwini is billing, but it goes into hundreds of millions to the different consumers. And then obviously, when meters are not read, these guys are guessing. And they're doing that frequently because they're lazy to go and read these meters. And they rely on people to give them the meter reading or a photocopy or a picture of the meter. Now, in the past, Asad, I'd like you to come in. There was a system in place. The eThekwini spent close to R1 billion on a new billing system, Asad. And that has failed the eThekwini. So that was wasted expenditure. But having said that, that process is not taking place now, because as Councillor Asghar mentioned, that he was incorrectly billed for 60K. And that account ought to have been trapped if that system was in place, because they would have looked at your average and said there's something wrong here, and we need to send a letter to him to say that, your meter is read, or the investigation would have uncovered the problem. The same with what Asad is talking about, that people are being given high bills because of overbilling and meters not being read, both water and electricity. And the average is, say, 6,500, 7,000 a month, and suddenly the person got a bill of 65,000. Now, the rules of the past was to trap that bill and not send it out, investigate, correct, and then resend the bill. And in the interim, write to the individual and say that there's a problem with your bill and we're not billing you this month. Otherwise, just pay your average that you used until we rebill you. Now, that was the order of the day through good administration in the past. I'm only talking about the billing system. I'm not talking about other avenues of local government. We're going to touch, when we have time, a little bit later. But having said that, we established that the reason for this is that you have inexperienced, you have underqualified, and you have staff that maybe not at work. Because I had former councillors and mayors in this office, and they said, the norm in a lot of municipalities, and I've said this several times in my programs, officials come in the morning, and particularly the managers who they manage below them, and the staff below them cannot ask them, where you're going. No, I'm going for a meeting. He comes and he signs at 8 o'clock, and he's gone for the day, and he comes back at 3 o'clock. Hey, I had a hectic day, man, meeting all day. Where this manager went, nobody knows. He went loafing, he went to cut deals, etc. And this is the order of the day in most municipalities. And that's one of the fundamental reasons why staff below them are taking advantage. So, Asad, I want you to come in, that the systems are not in place to deal with these issues. And when the ratepayer associations are raising it, because there's a large degree of unemployment, and our finance man is here to talk about it, and to talk about the promises Trump made, and he will start not delivering as well, and creating more havoc. But Asad, I just want you to comment that, the systems and the controls have failed hopelessly, so that who is losing in the end is a consumer.
100%. So again, let's take a step back. The way we are being treated at the moment, we are being treated as a consumer, which is wrong. The Systems Act was designed for a municipality to look after its people. They're not looking after us. They're looking at us as a source of income, which is incorrect. Secondly, Brother Asghar touched on this. The quality of the people, you touched on it as well. The quality of the individuals that we have in administration, and also the quality of the individuals in the political space. And I hope you'll indulge me. There's this recent racial slur that came out in council. A councillor made the comment. We can't run away from that. It's been recorded. It's been in the press. There's been many apologies. The speaker was taken apart for it because he tried to push it under the carpet. And when questioned about it, we investigating. And I can tell you, they'll come back and they'll say, we don't know who this person is.
Now, let me stop you there. And if a non-African councillor made that comment, what they would have done to him? Suspended him and taken appropriate action.
100%.
And there's no announcement in that regard other than we investigating.
And this is why I'm talking about this also. So let's get more advanced in our technology. Let's do a voice recording.
The cameras would have shown who said it. The guy sitting around there.
We want that councillor removed. End of story. If these are the caliber of people in council, what sort of policies are they putting in place? Because you definitely not abiding by the constitution. How can you be a councillor in a government institution, but you're not abiding by the constitution? Individuals like that must be taken to task. No mercy, must be removed. And we need to call for it. We mustn't be shy. We mustn't be scared. We must call it out. We must say it for what it is. The speaker, if he can't take action, he must go. End of story. If the mayor can't take action against the speaker, he must go. But we're not going to accept this. We can't carry on in a situation where they're taking us for a ride. That's what it is. Many other individuals, Brother Asghar says, no, come on the inside. We know, you have interviewed quite a few of those individuals who've tried to come from the inside. And they've been there now for a number of years. And they're struggling. It's either you align to a bigger party, and when you align to the bigger party, you have to abide by the policy. So it's we as a society, we must call it out. And if an organization, a party, a political party, if they're not delivering, and this is why I choose to stay on the outside. I choose to stay on the outside because I will support any individual, any party, as long as you deliver. If you don't, I'll hold you accountable, whichever party you are. I'm not here to choose sides. We're here to choose what is right and what is wrong. End of story. And if everyone does what they're supposed to do, we won't be in this situation. South Africa is owing the World Bank trillions of dollars, not even rands, to such a point that the interest that we're paying every day far exceeds the income that we're getting, which means there's not enough money to repair your roads, for hospitals, for schools, for health, etc., etc. We are on a downward spiral, and we have to stop this. Brother Yunus, when the atrocities of the world were taking place, and many years later, people ask those the grandparents, where were you and what did you do? You were there. Why didn't you stop it? This is our responsibility now. We here, we present, we must stop it. That's what we need to do.
No, thanks, Asad. I think we've just touched on a couple of issues, and it's pointing to the fact that local government is in a mess countrywide. Now, after the news break, we're going to check how do we attempt to fix it. And obviously, it's a huge challenge. It's a mountain to climb because the personnel you got there, you cannot remove them. And we discussed this subject before. But I'm pursuing the subject because I'm hoping that we will start chipping away and eventually, before the next municipal elections, people must pay the price for not delivering. We'll take a break for the news, and inshallah, we'll continue the discussion after the news.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Making news this hour, the 13th of November. The news from Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM. Local media says over 50,000 KwaZulu-Natal customers might lose access to electricity. American money now. Thousands of KwaZulu-Natal customers are at risk of not being able to access electricity if they do not update their prepaid meters. Report says Eskom has updated the token identifier. It says the current software on the meters that allows the devices to read if a token has been used or not will expire in 11 days. Report says that meters that have not been recoded will be inactive. Timothy Maba from Eskom in KwaZulu-Natal says customers must first check if their meters need upgrading by typing in a specific set of numbers on the machine. Maba says the numbers are 1844 6744 0738 43772416. Maba says if the number display 2 after punching in the numbers, it means there is no problem. If the meter displays 1, then there is some issue. Maba says customers can now go to their chat bot called Alfred and put in their details, their number, name, ID, and the meter number, and also contact details. He says another way to receive a code is by buying electricity token from a reputable vendor. More news. Civil engineering teams are working to unblock a stormwater drain in Kwanteguza CBD following flooding. The municipality says heavy rainfall caused businesses to close and also water levels to rise, flooding shops across the area. Spokesperson Swiso Zulu says an assessment found that the 2 discharge points responsible for draining the area are routed along the railway line, causing delays in water drainage during storms. He says they will have to clear the existing line and manhole. More news. South African Football Association SAFA President Danny Jordan applied for bail at the Gauteng court following his arrest earlier today. Jordan and his co-accused SAFA, the CFO Crony Loy, and businessman Trevor Neithlin, accused of fraud and theft involving 1.3 million rands. It's understood they had handed themselves over to the police after arrests were issued for them. The judge read out the bail earlier today as he gave a bail of 20,000 rands each. He had this to say.
You may retain your passport. You must provide the investigating officer with a written itinerary of your departure flight, your return flight, and your destination at least 72 hours prior to your departure. It must be in writing. This or these travels must be limited for official duties affiliated to SAFA only. If your position in SAFA changes in future, this bail condition will then be revised.
Ibrahim Rasool is set for a second stint as the country's ambassador. The former Western Cape Premier served as South Africa's ambassador to the USA between 2010 and 2015. Report says he now returns under Trump presidency. International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola made the announcement yesterday. And finally, an international story: an American military contractor has been obliged by a federal jury to pay $42 million to 3 former Iraqi detainees who were tortured at the notorious US-run Abu Ghraib prison near the capital Baghdad following the 2003 invasion of the Arab country. The ruling yesterday ended a 15-year legal battle over the role of the Virginia-based contractor CACI International, whose employees worked at the Abu Ghraib prison in the west of Baghdad in acts of torture that occurred at the facility in 2003 and 2004. Holding the CACI International liable, the jury awarded plaintiffs Suhail Al-Shimari, a middle school principal, Asad Zubayr, a fruit vendor, and Salah Al-Jalali, a journalist, $3 million each in compensatory damages and $11 million each in punitive damages. Your weather, 24 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. Thousands of KwaZulu-Natal customers are at risk of not being able to access electricity if they do not update their prepaid meters. The report says the prepaid meters or the recoded numbers are 184467073843772416. That's the
This time of trial and worry, the blessings of charity are the ideal means to avoid calamity and despair. The Al Imdad Foundation gives you the opportunity to sponsor a share in a borehole in South Africa for just 1,000 Rand and provide what the Holy Prophet peace be upon him, called the best form of charity. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين.
Car won't start?
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes?
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service?
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop to handle them all. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call us on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
Africa Muslims Agency has been providing critical aid in Gaza and Lebanon with your support. The humanitarian situation is more dire than ever before, with thousands displaced and in need of basic supplies to survive. Donate any amount to bring food, water, medical assistance and essentials to the people of Gaza and Lebanon. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Don't miss the celebration. Join us as we mark the first anniversary of Checkers Foods Kawi Park with a live broadcast from the store happening on Saturday, November 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Come hang with Zahir Basa, Salma Ghazi and Siraj Basa and enjoy a day packed with excitement, amazing giveaways and unbeatable in-store specials. Bring your family, friends and neighbors too. Everyone's invited. Save the date, Saturday, November 23rd at Checkers Foods Kawi Park. Checkers Foods Kawi Park is halal certified by NIHT across the butcher, bakery and deli. We can't wait to see you there. Checkers Foods Kawi Park.
This dua to be read during prayer is brought to you by Continental Butcher Baker Deli. Quality, freshness and value. Our promise to you since 1992.
Allahumma ghfir li warhamni wahdini warzuqni.
If you're looking for a delicious selection of freshly made baked goods, decadent deli treats, and succulent meats, there's no need to chop around anymore. Continental Butcher Baker Deli offers an award-winning service, presenting exceptional quality at competitive prices. Superb choice-grade lamb, beef, and chicken. Mouth-watering homemade processed meats and gourmet marinades, and scrumptious baked goodies. Quality, freshness, and a money-back guarantee. Visit Continental in Argyle Road.
Continental Sausage Circus, now featuring 80 different types of sausages. Hurry before there's not a sausage.
Black November is here with unbeatable savings from Simplex Radio.
Save 500 Rand on the Kenwood home mixer, now just 1799.
The D5 4.7 litre air fryer is only 799, saving you 400 Rand.
Philips irons starting at just 299 Rand.
Plus save 300 Rand on the Midea 20 litre microwave, now only 799 Rand.
Don't wait. These incredible deals won't last long.
Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
This Black November, we bring you the Skyward 65-inch smart TV at the unbelievable price of $8,299 or the 43-inch full HD Google TV at $3,999. From Kodia, we bring you the 6-litre extra large air fryer at $599. Limited stocks. From LG, get the 30-litre microwave at $1,999, saving you 200 Rand, or get the 42-litre microwave at the unbelievable price of $3,199.
Bar wise, where shopping is fun.
and you are number one.
Nando's at Saxony Westwood Mall is NIHT approved. Get ready to light up your taste buds with our legendary flame grilled chicken, the taste you trust. From juicy combos, mouth-watering burgers, wraps packed with flavor, bougie bowls, and platters that bring everyone together. We've got deals to make your mouth water. It's the OG of flame grilled goodness. Head on down to Nando's Westwood Mall, bringing the heat one bite at a time.
Audio stream across the world on radioalansar.co.za.
وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. And we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to the world. उठो बेसहारो चलो गम के मारो खबर ये सुनाओ हुजूर आ गए हैं हुजूर आ गए 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 अनोखा निराला पोजीशन.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus, live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, we were chatting about, is local government in a mess? Our guests clearly said yes. A lot of others have said yes. Now the important question is, how do we fix it? Now, before we come to a possible solution, which we tried to ascertain in the last few weeks, everything boils down to replacing the ward councillors and other councillors as well as officials, and it's a mammoth task. But our two councillor and civic activists in the studio will try to unpack. But I want to introduce and welcome our business economist and asset manager and chartered accountant Hassan Motala. Hassan, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Now, Hassan, I noticed that in the recent meeting between the Premier and others in a business conference, there was a pledge by business to boost the KZN economy, and you mentioned in previous sessions you joined me that people are beginning to invest in KZN and they're finding it to be a very good destination. We're hoping tourism will be on a high in a month's time and the economy will be boosted. But having said all that, there's still cause for concern on the finances of government. And Asad, before the news break, mentioned that because of the enormous amount of loans we hold, that the repayment is more than the income we're getting in. Perhaps you want to comment on that. I know there's been a bit of the rand has taken a bit of a hiding and past the 18 rand mark because of the American dollar improving, and Trump is making all kinds of commitments and promises.
Sure.
But what is your concern in terms of the debt and will we start sustaining, or is it a long road ahead?
Sure. Look, it's this past week, I think it was Monday and Tuesday, there was a investment conference that took place at the Durban ICC. I think there was the key issue is that government itself, whether it's local government, municipalities, provincial government, and the national government, in all cases or all spheres of government, the big issue is their debt. Debt levels are at exceptionally high levels. If you go back 10, 15, 20 years, it's the highest we've been. That's the biggest issue. And you saw, was it 2 weeks ago when our Minister of Finance announced his midterm budget? one of the key issues or concerns that came out of that budget was, again, how to rein in debt, because there's a shortfall of revenues expected during the coming year, and expenditure is still relatively high. The unions were pushing through again for massive pay increases in terms of wage bills, talking about 10 and 12%, whereas they were budgeting only 3.5% type of increases. The issue is that it's not sustainable long term. Now, when you're spending 20 or 22 cents of every rand that you're collecting in terms of revenue, just servicing debt cannot be sustainable. So debt has to be somehow reined in and managed. And more importantly, you need to get also other expenditures also reined in. And the biggest issue we got across the local, provincial, and national government is the issue of the wage bill. When you have an unproductive, workforce that is paying a substantial amount of money. I mean, the other day I read, they within certain of the local governments and the like, the waiters, the cleaners, the garden cutters and the like are being paid between 300 to 350,000 rand per year. If you compare that to what professional workers are being paid in the private sector, is substantially higher. That's also taking into account that they're getting, other benefits, whether it's pension and the like. You cannot sustain that long term, and that is the biggest issue. The thing out of the conference that came out, private sector has to play a part. Now there's talk about at the conference that about 76 billion rands worth of pledges were made. Pledges is one thing. You need to see it actually happening and being committed and coming through. So we're hoping that 76 billion of commitments and pledges that they've announced at the conference translates into actual flow of money and investment into the province over the next few years. That's important. But I think we are seeing it at the moment. So, for example, in the tourism industry, the fact that Club Med is spending a big amount of money, 2 billion rands, in terms of setting up a big resort, both in the North Coast, but also they're setting up a small game reserve as well in the KZN area. That's fantastic for the province, because that means a lot of foreign tourists will now start to be attracted and coming into KZN as well. The second thing is that you are seeing things like the Dubai Trade Port. Those have been a relatively decent success. Now, Dubai Trade Port, about 2 billion rands was spent in terms of it's been a reasonably good success in terms of attracting businesses, in terms of setting them up there, setting up warehousing, storage, and distribution and logistics. It's a fantastic hub. Companies like Samsung and the like, Alger, they're looking at these type of areas to want to further develop and grow their businesses. So I think the foundation is slowly being laid. My two colleagues here, two guests that I've earlier, and they've been talking about it, and they'll continue to talk about it, to drive sustainable investment and sustainable growth. You need to, however, have an environment that is enabling of it. And what that means your water must be flowing regularly. That means whether it's the residential or the commercial or the like, water must flow, not 10 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours of no water. That has to be, that's a big issue. Secondly, electricity. Fortunately, many corporates have addressed that, and we alhamdulillah, we haven't had for over 200 days now, we haven't had load shedding. So electricity is slowly becoming less, although still, when the likes of Eskom is talking about a 36% increase, that how can businesses operate profitably when you're getting massive increases being pushed through in terms of that? So that's why they're trying to go off the grid with solar and the like, but it's at the end of the day, it needs to be affordable electricity that can be sustained long term. Thirdly, infrastructure in terms of roads, rail, and the ports. Those are key issues and key challenges that we face. And to spend on that, I think that's the issue, is that the provincial governments, the municipal government, the eThekwini municipality, they're not budgeting enough to address those issues. And that's the unfortunate point is, if those key issues are not addressed, it hampers business in terms of the ability for business to grow and sustainably grow as well. I want to highlight one key issue in terms of the debt issue. Eskom has highlighted just the other day, they talked about 10 years ago, I'm not talking not even 50, just 10 years ago, municipalities owed Eskom in terms of debt 2.6 billion rands 10 years ago. Guess what they're owing, that they're going to end up owing in the next, by February or March 2025? What's the expectations of the debt being owned by municipalities to Eskom? 90 billion rands. How can that be possible? This culture also of non-payment, by just it's become so rife and an issue. Unfortunately, it's going to result in, if Eskom is now 90 billion, there's expectations that in 3 years' time, that debt of Eskom goes up to 200 billion. Then Eskom may not be able to function at all, because you cannot service your debt at those levels. You cannot service. Then they'll want 100% increase in terms of electricity increases to try and service that. So there has to be hard decisions taken in terms of addressing debt, in terms of addressing non-payment by various. So, one of the key issues, and the Ratepayers Association is one thing, you got to hand it to them. They're trying to do a lot of, trying to address some of the issues. But remember, there is a lot of subsidization that takes place. So you got a small portion of many of the metros and the municipalities, but many of us, many in all the suburbs, we're paying. But you got to bear in mind, there's a huge amount of informal settlements that are across the various metros, municipalities. They're not paying anything. So they are being subsidized. But the problem is, more and more, because of tough times and because also of the culture, there is a culture of entitlement and not wanting to pay that is prevalent across this country. That has to change. The government, the state-owned enterprises, the metros that cannot sustain increasing debt levels long-term, because it's going to result in basically we'll become bankrupt, and it's going to become a huge disaster longer term. And to wrest that away, you have to address the non-payment, you have to address service delivery, and you have to address the workforce. The workforce must deliver. Public sector, unfortunately, has not delivered in terms of efficient levels, service delivery. They need to start. We're fortunate that slowly, we are seeing unemployment slowly coming. Unemployment is at a record a few months back. This past week, at the end of September, it showed unemployment dropped from 34 to 32%. Still, 32% of the population are unemployed. And if you look at the youth, or those that are under 21 or 25, is more like 45% of them are unemployed. It's a big issue, and we need to address this.
I think some important points Hassan made. I'm going to make a couple of comments and I want to bring you in, Asad. I want to throw a couple of more hearings now in, as I do from time to time. There are only two departments in government that are quite efficient. One is the department that deals with disconnection of services. These are the independent contractors. They're quite efficient. As soon as you give them the list, they're on the ball. Then you got SARS. They're on people's back for the taxes. You submit your return and they're on your back. They've got so many auditors, they want to bring in revenue. But in terms of service delivery, we touched on a few, billing and others, but there are umpteen other deliverables that are not taking place. Now, what the municipalities are doing, Asad, is they're responding to only emergency maintenance. They're not dealing with routine and cyclical maintenance, which should be the order of the day, so that you will avert the problems we're hitting. The reason why they're doing that is they're inexperienced, they're not at office, and they don't have the funding to do these things, which Hassan is now talking about. But having said that, the municipality has come up with a debt relief program in eThekwini. in the municipalities that we are now addressing, and indeed other municipalities where they've given consumers up to 31st December to respond to the debt relief programs. And there's a couple of concessions there. But it's an onerous task, as you've understood from your group chat, to go there and get this program going, because no sooner you default, they bring back the whole debt and it creates more problems. But people are not available to even attend to those that want to come and sign, because they're not happy with the incorrect bill they have. Now, having said that, I remember that it was a policy of the municipality that if they have this debt relief program in place, that they shouldn't be disconnecting. Now, why is disconnection still taking place? Asad, I'm not sure in your areas and other areas where the tenants have complained and consumers have complained that disconnection should only take place after the 31st of December if people don't come and respond. But still, people are getting disconnection notices, being threatened. These independent contractors are coming in and saying, I'm going to disconnect because they got a list of all those are in default and collecting bribes. Asad?
Brother Yunus, so let's take a step back as well. So the reason why the municipality goes ahead with disconnections is because that's the only leverage they have over you as a consumer. They force you or threaten to disconnect you, knowing full well that you're going to run and go and make an arrangement to pay, or you're going to pay.
But isn't there a policy to hold back disconnections or freeze disconnections until this deadline of 31st December is over? Why are they still implementing? Because part of the council policy, I recall, is when council has approved a debt relief program and given you up to 31st, disconnection should be suspended.
100%. They go against their own policies.
So can't the consumer, who are listening to us, to say that this is against the policy?
They do that. They go to the Caesar Kala centers and those people
or even tell the independent contractor that you come in to discollect. There's a policy in place. You're not entitled to come and discollect. It's illegal.
Brother Yunus, we are currently in a litigation against the city. There is a consent order granted by the court which is still in force. The matter is set down for the 15th or the 16th of February. These people with disconnections came to a property. The resident showed them the court order, and the contractor was not interested. We then had to go to on emergency mode, write to the attorneys representing the city to say you are in violation of a court order. Then only the contractor was prepared to listen. Other than that, they're not interested. This is what we're dealing with. I want to touch on another point. Brother Hassan is talking about the economic issues facing the city and that's crippling us. We budgeted now, we're spending over 300 million rand to refurb Moses Mabhida. To attract what? Tourists and blah, blah, blah. You're going to do what? Fix the stadium where the people are going to stay. There's no water. Your beachfront is a mess. There's no water. There's no electricity. But you're prepared to spend money on a white elephant. It's not making sense. You are not doing what is correct. And these resolutions that they're passing in council is where the problems start. And I can tell you this much, and I'm not scared to say it. The reason why they're refurbishing the stadium is because somebody is getting a backhand. And that is why that resolution was passed and approved, because somebody is going to benefit financially from it. It's not being done in the best interest of the city. And that's what we must call out. We mustn't be afraid.
Now, they're not prioritizing their budget towards routine and cyclical maintenance, but even emergencies are being not responded to. So it's a major crisis we have in most municipalities. Now we're going to just touch, and I want to bring Asghar in. We spoke last week about some of the ways of fixing this problem up. And those ratepayer associations, we had 11 that way in PMberg, known as MARC. They were representing 11 ratepayer associations. Asad, I'm sure you may have interacted with them. And they were mentioning that they're trying their level best to work with Msinduzi, with administration. Even that is another issue, because they put an administrator that is complicit with the municipality, and there's little or no difference. And the only way to change this whole thing is to go to another level of administration where the councillors and officials are sidelined, and the administrator bring in a whole lot of new experienced personnel to deal with the problems. although there may be duplicated expenditure in terms of salaries or payment for services, but at least you may have some response and avert, like what Asad is talking about, money is being squandered on unnecessary pursuits at this point in time. Because if you have essential and emergency maintenance to do, you don't want to respond to a nice to have. So Asghar, coming back to how do we fix it, what is in your council's mind to really fix the problem?
First thing, the first and the starting point of the whole issue will be planning. And I always remind the council when it comes to adopting the budget of the 7 Ps. Proper prior planning prevents poor, pathetic performance. So if the council plans properly, and I was quite surprised to hear that eThekwini decided to spend 285 million on the stadium when they have 285 million problems in the city. So it comes down to planning. If your ward councillor and your PR councillor is not, influencing the planning of the municipality, you have a problem. So your first issue is planning, and you need to plan to ensure that the core functions of the municipality is taken care of. For example, you speak of routine maintenance. It's there in the guidelines and it's legislated that 8% of the city's budget must be used for maintenance. Are we then playing our oversight role as councillors in your city? Are you as a resident engaging the municipality on the 8% routine maintenance? These things are there to ensure that in a municipality the depreciation of your assets are cash backed. So normally it's your book entry, but it's cash backed, so that money is then taken from your depreciation and put back into restoring the asset. Is it happening, or is that depreciation going to someone's pocket? We need to understand and identify that within the municipalities. The second thing is to turn the municipality around would be accountability. You as a resident, you need to hold your councillor accountable to you. Is your councillor taking the voice of the people to council? Is he representing you properly? So that's the first thing. And secondly, your councillor then has a responsibility to hold the officials accountable. Not only the executive committee who is there on a day-to-day basis, but also the city manager and his team. So that's accountability. And lastly, and most importantly, is the aspect of oversight. If your councillors are not doing oversight, then you have councillors who are getting paid for absolutely nothing. So these are the three things. The other issues, and these are the issues that your councillors then need to raise within the municipality. And these issues start from issues like revenue enhancement. How do we understand that we have a shortfall of money? And revenue is and the Economist is speaking of the state of the economy at the moment. So there is a revenue shortfall. How do we then enhance revenue without putting burden on the ratepayer? Because it's very easy to enhance revenue by increasing the randage. But how do we then enhance revenue by not putting the burden on the ratepayer? And these things come in public-private partnerships, investment, and those type of things. The second thing that in terms of the revenue, is then to cost contain. So you have your cost. Well, municipalities have cost containment in paper and a policy. Now we have a cost containment policy. But how many municipalities are actually following up with those cost containments? If you look at the municipal, financial statements, you'll find accommodation and travel. Millions and millions of rand is being spent on it. But how many municipalities are actually keeping in line with the Treasury circular to say that you're not allowed to book accommodation for any person if the trip is less than 500 kilometers? So who's holding them accountable? So cost containment it needs to be implemented properly. Then the most important thing will be then to identify your services that need to come in and spend on the core services and not on the nice to haves. It's nice to have these parties and these other sideshows. You call them sideshows, but let's spend on the core function of the municipality. There's many other challenges. That's just the challenge of financial management. You look at corruption, you look at skills and the human resource challenges. Another serious challenge in municipalities is political interference. We see this everywhere. How do we challenge and how do we tackle political interference? Will be to ensure that we employ people who have the skills and the merit to do the job. This issue of cadre deployment, or they use this term of putting people there who will implement the policy of the government of the day. No, the government of the day can make the policy, but the person who's there is a professional. So we need to professionalize the workforce, and that's very important. When you look at the other aspect that affects the municipality, especially in the human resource department, is the high turnover of staff. And you have a person that you train them, and then 2 months, a year later, or 2 years later, they go on to some other department or somewhere else in the private. So a lot of money has been spent on training and development, but these people are then not loyal towards that municipality or that entity that trained them. With human resources, and you touched on this at the beginning of the show, where you spoke of the irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. Whenever expenditure is especially fruitless and wasteful, there must be someone responsible for it. And municipalities then need to ensure consequence management takes place. I mean, the AG will come into a municipality, and now in December, January, you'll get those reports being published that this municipality has got a qualified or unqualified or a clean audit or whatever it is. The AG will then give you items to work on. And the AG will identify that these were the problems in your municipality. Sometimes 10, sometimes 20, sometimes 100. Depending on the type of audit the municipality has. So then there must be consequence management. Monies must be recovered. Consequence management doesn't mean you fire people only. It could mean, that this person has a lack of skill in a certain aspect, then train them as a form of consequence management. But if it continues and it perpetuates, then you must get rid of those people. So you need to professionalize the workforce. The political instability, and you touched on the revolving door of mayors. If you don't have political stability, you don't have a municipality. Because the politician, although people don't like it, the politicians, the mayor, the executive committee, these people run the municipality because they provide political guidance and they provide guidance to the administration. The administration only implements the policies adopted by council. The administration does not have the executive authority to go and make policy. Even though you may find the COCTA MEC coming in and going to municipalities and implementing Section 154. The Section 154 that's implemented in municipalities is putting someone from COCTA to advise the municipality. There's no executive authority on that person. So where's the accountability? We come back to that. The last one that I want to touch on is the issue of planning, but planning for the future in terms of your urbanization, because we find it in eThekwini, in other municipalities also, where we have this growing thing of urbanization. People want to move away from the rural areas and come towards the towns and the cities. What are the municipalities doing to ensure that when people come there, they have basic services, they have electricity, they have water, they have sanitation, they have decent living places to live? So these municipalities then need to adopt a strategy to cater for those type of things, or we're going to perpetuate the issue of informal settlements within our communities.
I said I want to bring you in, but I want to make a few comments. Over the last couple of months, and I'm continuing to harp on this subject of service delivery, because all the ratepayer associations are complaining that very few deliverables are being achieved, if not even the basics. We spoke about billing, which is one area. It's hurting the pockets of the consumers. But other deliverables, 8 or 10 of them we can list, whether it's crime, whether it's verge cutting, whether it's maintenance of roads. It's been recorded and noted, there's no delivery. We also have a situation where the ratepayers are complaining and council has conceded to such an extent that the ANC KZN calls for renewed focus on service delivery, and this seems to be their promises they make, because the provincial chairperson, Mr. Duma, Sibaniso Duma, he said to an organizational political lecture in Moses Mabhida region, as part of the organization's program of action aimed at rebuilding and reuniting their branches, Duma said that unity in action would ensure stability of the ANC and the alliance. And he said that the party had a responsibility to make local government work better and bring the people to the center of the program for service delivery. Now, these are promises that have been made by various political parties. But if there are complaints lodged by ERPM or ORA or Springtown Civic Association or EPPA or Mark in Maritzburg, it goes to the mayor, it goes to the councillors, and they don't care a damn because everybody says it's not my problem. And effectively what's happening is there's no implementation of potential changes. Now, in a business, if a business is now not in a profitable situation, Hassan, you go into business rescue. After that, you go into liquidation. Now, with a municipality, you can go into dissolution, which most of these municipalities should be going on to. But, there's been voting in this regard, and the ruling party overrules the vote. Even government, too, they mentioned he was going to dissolution. Now, our listeners out there have been listening to our programs, Asad, for a number of months. And they've indicated that you guys have highlighted the compromises in service delivery. You've highlighted the reasons for the problems, whether it's maladministration, corruption, and the like. You've come up with solutions, but the implementation of these solutions is a problem. Now, Councillor Asghar mentioned that, planning, appointing, staff that are competent, consequential management, and a list of them. But the public is saying, for the last 2 decades, nothing's happening. Things are getting from bad to worse. Some politicians have come into my show and said, you put the wrong councillors in there. You need to put your money where your mouth is. And we're going to do a series of programs leading up to 2026, which may result in maybe a 10% new councillors coming in, maybe from the minority communities, but you'll still be a minority there. Now, Asad, from your organization's point of view, how do you see these municipalities that are in the majority controlled by the larger parties beginning to listen to the ratepayers and the consumers and beginning to change? Or are we in a hopeless situation until we make duas that in 2026 we have a magnificent change or something?
I think, brother Yunus, you're talking the right thing, and I think we must not be shy. We must say it for what it is. The reality is this ANC government has failed these people. It's failed this country. We must not be shy to say it. We mustn't say the ruling party, this party, that party. It's the ANC government that has failed this country, like it or not. And if the ANC can't rectify itself, and we can't, I've been in discussions with senior individuals from within the ANC. We called this out 10 years ago, and we said if the ANC cannot reform itself, we were going down a downward spiral, and that's the reality. So mayors may come, mayors may go, but it's all the same, cut from the same cloth. There is no real commitment from this ANC government to rectify itself. You touched on the provincial leader talking about the failure of service delivery. Yesterday, the president himself called it out. eThekwini is failing to deliver services to its people. The president of the country is saying it. The president of the ANC himself is saying it. So the ANC themselves can't see themselves for what they are. Who's going to go and show it to them? Everyone is telling them you're failing. You're not just failing the ratepayers. You're failing your own people. 30 years into democracy in eThekwini, we don't have people who can get water. You failed the people, not us. You as the government, you failed. And we must call it out, and we must strongly call it out. And let's look on the other side. You got a new minister of prisons. Look at the excellent work that he's doing. I mean, one individual left the jail. He's making a huge story about it. He's not shy to call it out. He raided the prisons. He removed stuff that was not supposed to be in the prisons. This is what a minister is supposed to do, not go to your office in the morning and sell AMC cookware, because this is what they've been doing. You go now to look at any of these councillors, even DA councillors too. They're just the same. I mean, I'm in an area. My councillor he's a lawyer. You can't get him from 8 to 5. You can only get him at 11 o'clock in the night. What sort of a councillor is this? We don't need these people. If you are a councillor, you are a councillor for the people. That is your priority. If you can't do that, then step back. Don't say, no, I am your councillor, but I am also a lawyer. No, choose. Decide what you want to do. You can't do both. So we must call out all these individuals who are failing our people, bring in the right leadership. This, sidestepping and sugarcoating this government. It's the ANC. They failed. Finished. End of story. Yes, they're trying to make this thing work with the GNU, but we're already seeing the stress there. And let's assume that this thing fails. The people will need to elect a proper system of governance. We can't carry on like this. We're talking about informal settlements in eThekwini. 500,000 people in eThekwini subsidizing close to 4 million people. How is that sustainable? Impossible. It's not going to work.
Now, Hassan, I want to bring you in. I spoke about business rescue in a business. If they're failing to sustain themselves, then you get a business rescue practitioner. The creditors call for that, and they're hoping that he will come and make changes because the existing owners are not making it work. They're either squandering the money or they're doing all wrong things. And then you go into liquidation. Now, with governments, and we're talking about local government, you're talking about Section 154, which eThekwini is on. Now, Mike Sutcliffe has told us that he's more an oversight role and he just provides recommendations. And then the presidential task team headed by Mike Mabuya Kulu and others, and we had one of the members, Ibrahim Patel, that was present here, and he mentioned, they do an oversight and they make recommendations, but effectively, if council decide not to, and that's the trend that Asad is talking about, you're back to square one. eThekwini is on 139, which is basically administration, and it's reported that he's failed as well because the individual that was appointed by council is complicit with the municipality, and for the last couple of years, they're political appointments, and they're making a bad situation worse. Now, when it comes to dissolution, you dissolve the municipality and you bring in a whole lot of new councillors, and those councillors will then side or put the officials one side, take action against them for non-delivery, consequential management. And as Asad pointed in the start of the program, that many of them have been involved with wasteful and fruitful expenditure. There's a court ruling that they must be criminally held liable. And then you'll set an example and bring in new officials, even if you bring in a bunch of retired individuals to come and assist and clean up for a period of 18 months or 12 months, you begin to see changes until the next election. So from a business perspective, our listeners want to know how we're going to fix this thing up. My subject today is how we're going to fix it up. The nice to have of having a posh Moves Mabida Stadium, to have Marriott and other big guys coming to Amshlanga and attracting visitors and increasing tourism. 75% of our community are poor people and they're relying on basic services. There's no jobs for them. They're being overcharged electricity and water. They're not getting services. They're tenants in various flats and buildings. And they're crying. Widows are passing on, and it's a sad state of affairs. So Hassan, from a business rescue, liquidation, dissolution, various options, as an economist, as a chartered accountant, what is the solution for local government beside 2026? And even that may not work. Our listeners want to know, is there an interim arrangement that you think will work in South Africa? And we'll bring Asghar to close up on the discussion and Asad.
So I think there's the biggest issue we face in all, whether it's municipalities, whether it's the metros, or whether it's the provincial, is the issue around skills and capacity. Skills as in you've got so many people that are employed across these various organizations that are there just filling seats. They're not there to do proper jobs. However, the one thing that I'm a
You
little
mean they're
bit,
getting high packages and
they're getting
virtually doing
massive-
nothing?
As I said, I mean, they're getting.
There's no performance management criteria,
See,
nothing.
There's no KPIs. Unlike where you have if you go to any private institution, private sector, any corporates that you go to, there's a KPI there. You require you assessed on based on what is your position. These are your key performance indicators. At the end, every 6 months or in a yearly basis, you're judged against that. If you don't perform against it, you
They
either
terminate the employment.
You terminate or you
demote
basically
or you do something.
demoted, things like that. There.
So
That will
the
happen.
principle is the same.
The principle must be the same, but it's not. Unfortunately, there's absolutely no record or any indications that it is being implemented within the public sector.
Now, the president, interestingly, what you said indicated that he's going to have performance management criteria to measure
But he
his
said
ministers.
the unfortunate Yunus is they've said it for years. Whether it was Zuma that had it, and whether Ramaphosa has been now in his second term. In his first term, they talked about he had a specific somebody, the minister of the presidency, or somebody. There was another that was meant to do just key performance. They did nothing, absolutely nothing.
Because if you look at now, you in business, and you spoke about the JSC. Investors are putting their money in. They want to see returns. The pension fund administrators, etc. The consumers and ratepayers are putting in money in the municipality, and they want returns. And their return is efficient service delivery, and that is below zero.
Correct. I'll give you one example. So we talked about. You mentioned earlier 2 institutions in South Africa that are actually do very well. The SARS. And the other one being the one that cuts off the disconnection
contractors, yes.
Let's look at SARS. There was an article last week or the week before. Kieswetter gets paid, Edward Kieswetter, who's the SARS commissioner, got paid double what the president got paid. Why did he get paid double what the president paid?
Because he's collecting the revenue.
Key performance indicator.
All right.
He's given a target. This is how much of revenues you must collect for this period. If you collect over and above that, your performance bonus or your remuneration will be based upon that. He did his job. He had last year he did a fantastic year in terms of collecting better than expectations in terms of what they were trying to collect. He gets remunerated accordingly. Similarly, this has to be implemented. So not necessarily in all cases where it's revenue related. It's
you know why his task is easy, is because there are prescribed tax charges for employees, businesses, etc. And if you don't pay, then he goes into your bank accounts and he takes the money. So basically, they're very efficient in that.
But the one thing is what he had to do: employ the right people. So he's got the right skills. He's employed CAs, he's employed lawyers, he's got the right skills in there.
So we were hoping, Asad, that if that was inefficient, you'll save some taxes. So it's revenue driven, this whole thing.
It's revenue.
Now it's revenue driven to really ensure that the consumer, every cent you take out of him, you take it out of him, including those that are earning low salaries.
So it will be so great if they use that same, efficiencies in terms of how they try. Look, there's still a lot of inefficiencies in the system in terms of revenue collection from SARS, because there's a big,
chunk of guys that are evading tax.
Only 15% of the population contribute 90% of the tax base. That's a big amount.
And those 15% are taxed to the T.
They tax to we are one of the highest tax-paying nations in the world. The problem, though, one is to be a high tax-paying nation. But it's okay if you're at least getting bang for your buck in terms of, am I getting good public health care? Am I getting good public education? Am I getting good public social services? Like, if something happens to me and I don't work for a month or 2 months, at least I'm going to get like a stipend or whatever. We don't get that. But if you go to the Nordic countries, whether it's Sweden, Norway, they taxed as well, 40 to 45% and the like. But they're getting good social services for what they're paying for. We're not getting that.
Now, coming to the point, most municipalities are underperforming or not performing, as per the Auditor General.
Yes.
They cannot go into business rescue because Section 154 is failing. That's a kind of business rescue. Liquidation means that they must vote those councils and dissolve. Would that be possible?
Look, I'm
because
not
the solution, I'll ask Asghar to come in. The solution works on the basis that somebody needs to move the motion, and I'm hoping Al Jama will move the motion in Amdoni, and maybe the DA must move the motion in eThekwini, although they failed, that let's dissolve the council because you failed us, and bring in a new lot of councillors and officials to fix and rescue the municipality. What is your take?
It's obviously a political decision. And at the end of the day, each of the municipalities...
But it has to be an economic decision, because this is what the ratepayers are calling.
It will be but the thing
I'm going to ask Asad to put his
council,
head in the
where
block
the decision is taken, and it's by and large there will always be.
So you say if these municipalities were in business, they would have to go into dissolution.
Every one of them, most of them will be. If you look at the audits, look at 70% of all the audits that came out from the Auditor General were qualified audits. That tells you.
So that grounds for dissolution.
That's grounds for that. Look, I think they could not necessarily go into, but a big chunk of them would go into dissolution. Key issues. There are, if you look at in the last 6 months or 9 months, there actually has been there is signs and indications that if you put in the right people. Asad talked about earlier that he talked about the Minister of Prisons. Look at the Minister of the Police Commissioner in KZN. Crime is massive throughout the country. But look at KZN in the last 6 months. There actually is a concerted effort that you can see that they are addressing some of the big issues. They are addressing it with the help of also working with the private sector, whether it's the likes of the Magmas and they're working. So public and private partnerships can work. It worked in the energy sector. 2 years ago, we were on the verge of collapse in terms of load shedding, and the country was going into the word, what we use, sakarat. We were going into something like that there because of what was going on. Come now, 200 days, no load shedding, over 200 days. Not because Eskom all of a sudden is in a fantastic situation. No. Eskom, yes, maybe better maintenance is taking place. They're slowly improving. But a big chunk of private sector and corporates have now going off the grid by having spent substantial amounts of money in terms of bringing in alternative energy, solar, whatever it is they're using, going off the grid. So public and private had worked together and had resulted in an improvement. It can happen in other areas. It can happen in the whether it's water related infrastructure. It can happen in the ports or road and rail. It can happen there. So I think there should be more of that happening. Secondly, the appointments. We talked about the prison minister of, but even other areas, whether it's the home affairs, whether it's Parks Tau, Minister Barbara Hogan. There's actually some good appointments that have come through that are slowly making a difference. It's still early days, but they're slowly making a difference. And I think you need a lot more of that to happen within municipalities and within the metros and the provincial. You need better skilled people to come in and make it. So it can happen, but the unfortunate thing is many of these other people are so entrenched in there, and the process to get them out, it can take. Look, things can happen. Who's in the dock that happened? Was it today, yesterday? That he was charged, and Dani Jordan. Dani Jordan has been in his seat for a long time in terms of SAFA, long time. And there was always allegations from the 2010 World Cup right through around corruption. But now all of a sudden, just because of 1.2 million irregularity that's picked up, there's evidence, and he's charged, arrested, and he's in the dock. So hopefully more and more of that can happen. You get rid of those type of individuals that are corrupt and are really not worth the paper, and bring in individuals that have the skills and they can make a difference. But the unfortunate thing, we don't have a lot of time, because as I said, the debt levels are just shooting up. Hopefully, we can, it won't shoot up at a rapid pace of what is done in the last 5 years. But the problem is, you need to sort out the dead wood and the like as soon as possible, and get in better skills, better capacity that can address the issues that we face.
Hassan is gone a bit easy on the officials. Asad, I want you to come in now. We're in a hopeless situation. We conceded that municipalities are in a mess. We conceded that the councillors haven't got the will to improve and make it happen because of various reasons which we've highlighted. The cadre deployment and officials that have been appointed don't know what they're doing, save for a handful. So we're in a hopeless situation. What is your proposal? Do we go into dissolution, liquidation, or we work the way through Hassan is talking about? Because he mentioned through the GNU, there has been some improvement, because I think you quoted Minister of Prisons in KZN, the Premier, and some of the MECs from other parties are beginning to start looking at performance criteria and, criteria to improve service delivery. Like McPherson had this conference and he's looking at, accountability and doing away with this mafia, etc. So you've got a few minutes just to give us what's your potential solution to the problem to ensure that, our ratepayers and consumers get some degree of value for money.
Brother Yunus, for me, I think my parting shot is the fish rots from the head. And I think we need a good president. The president that we have, he don't know what's happening. If you ask him, he'll say, how? Nobody told me. I'm not aware. So if we had the right president
He's conveniently just keeping quiet about it, pleading ignorance.
He's a no-show. He's an absolute no-show. He doesn't know what's happening in this country. And he's not close to the detail. South Africa needs a good president. And sadly, the succession within the ANC, and look at who is being touted to be the next ANC president. We are in for a very high jump. We don't have good individuals that are going to take over and lead this country into prosperity. And for me, that is a big concern.
Okay, so what you're saying is that something drastic need to take place, a revamp of the municipalities, and business rescue has started in eThekwini, but there's no results being yielded, and you need a revamp, and a serious revamp, and whether dissolution is a problem or a solution, we need to look at it, to hold municipality councillors and exco and officials to account. They're just interested in their pay packet. They got their November bonus and they're looking at how to spend it in Christmas. Asghar, your take.
No, I think what's very, very important and what is imperative for the municipalities and the councillors and those involved or those charged with service delivery, one must go back to basics. The ratepayer, the demands is not much. If you give the ratepayer, his street lights, you give the ratepayer proper drainage on the roads, you cut his verges once a month, you pick his refuse up once a week, and you ensure that the roads that they use are safe. And lastly, you make sure that there's adequate water and electricity supply. The ratepayer will happily pay you his rates. So it's to ensure that delivery takes place of these things. And that's where your turnaround starts. In terms of a turnaround strategy, you need to make sure that delivery of services takes place. And that's on the rate-paying side and the suburb areas. At the same time, it's also very, very important to level the playing fields. We know that South Africa comes out of apartheid, and 30 years later, we're still talking of leveling the playing fields. But the truth of the matter is that rural areas are still underdeveloped. And municipalities need to ensure that rural development takes place. And, we find in many municipalities, and I'm sure it's happening in eThekwini also, where they spend millions of rands on re-graveling of roads, when the same money could have been used to blacktop those roads and encourage development and the township economy to grow from there. So we must ensure that rural development takes place. The financial viability of municipalities is important. So we then need to make sure that wherever you are, whichever municipality you are, I'm going to speak for Amdoni. Our municipality has 7 months cash reserves. So although we are under 154, the 154 is for other reasons, for service delivery failures and those debt management and those type of things. But in terms of financial viability of the municipality, and the Amdoni municipality is good, because I think we have almost 100 or 180 million or something in reserves. Our budget is 400 million for the year. So we have 6 to 7 months cash coverage. What is then important that we need to ensure service delivery takes place. People get the bang for their buck. And debt management. Once we do those things, I think the municipality will be a better place. So at the moment, there's no need for dissolution, to answer your question.
Okay, Asghar is going a little bit easy, because you can't blame him. He's a councillor and we don't want his exco and council to hold him to account. Now, there's a listener that sent me a voice message and he is commenting on the subject. It's a 1.5 minute comment, Dr. Faisal Suleiman. He's quite au fait with the subject. I haven't listened, but I'm going to cut the voice if he swears on the phone. But let's catch a listen. And I haven't heard it, but he says, I've got some comments. So let's hear what Dr. Faisal Suleiman has to say about the subject we're discussing. At least there are a lot of people listening. So, Monley, just play it and let's hear.
Yes, Faisal Suleiman, just listening to your topic. One of the problems you have is you have the vast majority of political parties, whether it's the ANC, the EFF, the MK now, and all the other smaller parties, saying not what can you do for your country, but what we can, the country must do for you. And the population has gotten used to that, a significant part of our population. And therefore, the political parties are now bound to increase the social grant network, etc. Even now here's the talk about government must subsidize and create spaza shops after the sort of rising tide against foreign-owned spaza shops, etc. This culture, as long as the political party wants votes, is not going to be changed, because that is exactly how they are, campaigning to get votes, and especially for the 2026 elections, I see this getting worse. So that is a sad reality of the fact that even now, I think pre-election, when Samna did some stats, I think we were told that for every rand that you are paying in the suburbs, about 82 cents is actually being used elsewhere, mainly in the townships, etc. So it's a huge problem, and the politicians aren't helping.
So there was Dr. Faisal Suleiman, some very pertinent comments. Our ratepayers have spoken, our councillor has spoken, our economist has spoken. I put a couple of options on the table, and indications are that we are paying for services and we must demand services. The sustenance and the resilience of ratepayers should continue, because pre-apartheid there were demands from activists then to change the government because it was discriminatory. We know that in Gaza there's a whole lot of challenges our brothers and sisters are facing there, and the West is complicit with the Zionists. But the struggle continues, and indeed in South Africa during the pre-apartheid era, the struggle continued until we had a change in government. Now it is the other way around, where ratepayers and residents are complaining that this government is failing to deliver. And the ANC as a ruling party has acknowledged the fact that they need a renewed focus. And MK, as Dr. Faisal Suleiman has mentioned, has broken away from the ANC. And they've got some radical, ideas. EFF is now going downhill. A lot of their members are joining other parties. So from a political perspective, there are huge challenges. But meanwhile, the consumer, who is now facing all these problems, is seeing the situation going south, and they're hoping that there will be a solution. So some of the comments made by our economist, by our councillor, by our civic activists is that we are now hoping that sanity prevails and the councillors and officials will begin to realize that we're there for a purpose. But from an Islamic perspective, we know that if you're holding a position of amanat, it is a trust, and if you fail, then you should give up that position. But a lot of these people are not, Muslims, are not believers, so they believe that it's an entitlement thing, and they are now fixing up the irregularities of the apartheid era. But 30 years into democracy, officials believe that the government owes them these jobs, and in return they must do nothing or do very little. So our sort of way forward is to continue make du'as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides not only the leaders but the officials to do what they have to do and care for the poor people, and ensure that when people phone in with challenges that you respond. It is humane to do that. It's not only from a religious perspective. From all religious perspectives, you have to respond to the needs of people that pay for services and refrain from those actions that are prohibited, not only from a legal perspective, but from a religious perspective. So my closing comments is, as I always do, is there's always hope on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we drive into the horizons and different areas, we look at the ni'mats that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, and these ni'mats came at no cost. The rain comes free, but people, they channel the rain to the dams and they charge us an exorbitant amount because they want to fill up their pockets. Likewise with other ni'mats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to make du'as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring about changes worldwide, help our Muslim brothers in Palestine, in Afghanistan, in Kashmir, in Lebanon, in Syria, wherever there's these difficulties, and indeed help humanity, that the lives of the people must improve. But we Muslims are like a guiding light, and we have to ensure that if our amals are right, then decisions are taken by Allah for the benefit of humanity. So we have to keep up our 5 times our ibadat and continuously make du'as for improvement of services, because it's not a hopeless situation. Allah is in control. We make du'as, and notwithstanding all that, many of us in South Africa would say we're far better off than lots of other people in other parts of the world. So it's not doom and gloom. We will continue with these type of discussions going forward, leading up to the municipal elections. We're going to get updates from our ratepayer associations and our councillors. Is there an improvement? GNU is bringing some kind of a light into the situation, some kind of an improvement, because we're hearing from the MECs that are holding these positions that they're beginning to highlight the problems and how to rectify it. So we make du'as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist those in control and inshallah improve the lives of our people, and also take care of those that are having distress in other parts of the world. Should any of the listeners and others that wish to comment and request us to have any specific programs related to service delivery, because this particular slot is for various subjects, please feel free to WhatsApp us or email so that we can cover those subjects and bring in the experienced guests. Shukran for joining us, Hassan, Councillor Asghar, and Asad, as usual, very, very frank, and not afraid to call a spade a spade. We thank our technician Bondley for doing a wonderful job, and thank you to our listeners for joining us. Until next Wednesday, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.